Hey y'all, it's Samson. Our fellas that we're about to talk to have been together now for over 25 years. That's right, over 25 years. But before we talk to them, let's have a quick conversation about making sure that we get enough fiber. Men, we have to make sure we're getting enough fiber. And I have a great supplement that's worth checking out called Colon Broom Premium. What's so great about Colon Broom Premium? It is full of the daily fiber that you need. In addition to that, it's full of B vitamins and L-carnitine, which helps your body turn fat into energy. Again, as men especially, and the women who watch the channel, fiber is a must, especially as we get older. It is ridiculous that so many men sit on the toilet straining and all that type of stuff. You don't need to be straining. You need to have a smooth move. And if you want to have a smooth move, Golden Broom is the supplement for you. I've been using this now for over 3 years. It does wonders. It's also really good for your skin. The link is in the description of this video. Use my code SAMSON10 to check it out, save a little money, and I promise your health is worth the investment. You'll like it a lot. All right, so now that we've talked about Colon Broom, we got the health talk out the way. Let's talk to these fellas. And Marshall and Kevin, how are y'all?
We're doing great.
Doing okay.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We gotta start this by getting all up in y'all's business. We gotta ask the question that we ask everybody, and that is, how long have y'all been together, and how did y'all first meet?
It's 24, it's 25
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
We met on a website, actually. There was a website way back when called ebonymail.com. And
Ooh,
it wasn't a sex site, it actually was a dating site. And I ended up on the site because I had broken up with a kind of well-known person who shall remain nameless. And I thought that person was going to be my husband for the rest of my life. And so I was kind of in a deeper depression and really kind of giving up on love or whatever. And my friends said, no, it's not the end of the road, turn off the Boys to Men. Let's, figure out how we can get back out there. And so they actually made a profile for me on this site. And I did oblige them, and I went on the site and I looked, and I saw two profiles. One of the profiles was him. The other was another person who doesn't need to be mentioned because, needless to say, I guess they didn't make the cut. And I remember he told me in our first conversation that his birthday was coming up, and I offered to take him out to eat for his birthday as our first date. And he's already laughing. And I showed up to the restaurant, and I saw him, and I thought to myself, oh no, this is not going to work. um, we were obviously very different, just even from the dress that we were wearing. He kind of had on a orange psychedelic t-shirt and some orange patent leather tennis shoes and some blue jeans. And I'm all in my baseball cap and V-neck sweater and blue jeans and K-Swiss. And, I just was very much like, ooh, okay, this is going to be a very, very good friend. And it teaches you a lot about assuming, because eventually it makes an ass out of you. And so we sat down. We immediately clicked. We had really, really great conversation. We made each other laugh. And I don't know, I felt like, this is somebody different. I don't know if I could put my finger on it, but it's kind of like something that that this is somebody different. It's something about him. And I don't normally invite anybody back to my place on the first date, but I invited him because I will remember the day for the rest of my life, because it was the exact same day that Denzel Washington and Halle Berry and Sidney Poitier all won their Oscars.
wow.
And that's why I always remember that day. And he came back and we sat, we had something to drink, we talked, we watched it. It was wonderful. I had a great experience. There was no sexual, stuff like that. It was just really having a good time with somebody. And he went home and he lived far from me. I lived in Harlem at the time and he lived in East New York. And if anybody knows New York, they'll be like, whoa. He lived
East New York, Brooklyn.
East New York, Brooklyn. He lived a long way away. But I just, something in me said I wanted to see him again. And so I invited him over for a dinner and I cooked the dinner. Mhm. I
What
cooked the
was that
dinner.
face about?
He's gonna tell you.
I cooked the
'Cause
dinner.
He's never gonna let me live it down. But go ahead.
I cooked the dinner. I put my heart into this little old dinner. I went online and researched what I was going to cook. I went and bought the salmon. I made salmon, lemon pepper salmon. I don't even remember what else I made, but I made a dinner, okay? A dinner. This one here gets there, looks at the food, and goes, I don't eat seafood. And so I'm looking
He
at
didn't ask me, so
I looked at him and I was just like, okay, strike one,
Uh-oh.
strike one. So we eat whatever, so on and so forth. It's still a great company, still a wonderful opportunity, still nice date. I just found myself calling him again. I tried to make up for the salmon, so I cooked again. And he looked at the food and was just like, well, um, it was all right. Okay, strike two. Strike two. I'm like, okay. But once again, the company was great, easy to talk to, um, easy to make each other laugh. And I'm not realizing that every time I'm seeing him, I'm falling. I'm just falling a few more steps down. The third day, he comes over. I don't know what I made again, but he had another complaint. Strike three. And so for the last 25 years, I do not cook. I don't cook
I set myself up for having to cook for the rest of our lives.
for the rest of our lives.
And it sounds like that may have helped make this work.
That third date, I didn't want to be away from him, and I rode with him from Harlem to East New York just because I wanted to see him get home safely, and rode back. And then when I got back,
Did you?
Yeah, I
You
did.
stay the night?
No, I did not stay the night. I gone back because remember I called you and I said, I don't want you to say anything, but I feel like I need to say these words to you. I think I'm falling for you.
Wow.
And
let me ask really quickly, because in our relationships as Black gay men, we can sometimes be challenged by that type of vulnerability. And so that took a lot of courage for you to do that, I'm sure. What gave you that courage?
Before this man came into my life and after the heartbreak, I remember being in such um, so heartbroken that I remember my grandmother's word, when you don't got nowhere else to go, go to God. And I remember praying. I remember praying, tears coming out of my eyes. And I asked the Lord, I said, that, you always said, seek and we'll find, asking and knocking, all things will be delivered. And I remember just in tears, I put out a prescription. I asked the Lord very specifically what I wanted. Specifically. And I look back now and he gave me every single thing that I asked.
Wow.
And I think that I knew, I my heart knew, my body knew, my mind knew that I was going to be with this man. And I couldn't walk around anymore with this stuff on my chest about how I felt about him. I mean,
And I was the opposite as far as I wasn't looking for anybody, and I wasn't looking for a relationship after going through the things that I went through and meeting guys that were not worth my time. I
Mm.
just kind of gave up. So at that point, I was just like, let God, let go, let God. And that's what I did. I just let go, and I just happened to be on this website, and I saw his profile.
um, and I just knew. I don't know. I knew it was time. I knew that this was the guy. Um, I I think the moment was that when I went, I remember riding on that train with him and walking him to his door, and there was a kitten outside.
Mm.
Funny, it's the little things. And it was a kitten. It was a stray kitten. He lived on the street where there was a bodega on the corner. There was a kitten, and it was whining. It was very obvious that the kitten was very hungry. And I watched this man.
I let the kitten in because he was hungry. He went from the front of the house to the back of the house because there was an empty lot next to the house with, weeds and stuff. And he came to the back of the house. So I let him in
And he fed him.
and I fed him. And
He was so gentle, so caring. And I thought, if this man will do this to a cat that could have any kind of anything, but he would put this much love and energy, then how much love and energy would he put into me?
Mm.
And
of course, that little black thing never left.
he was with us until his dying day. But I just knew I had that thing. I think it's something that if we listen to it, and also if we prepare ourselves for it, I think that a lot of us we walk around asking for tens when we're threes.
Mm.
We're not willing to up our number and prepare ourselves for when that 10 comes, because that 10 may not come in the package that you expected.
What are your relationships like with each other's family? What was it like introducing each other to each other's family?
There's a mythology about Black families and being gay. I think that it depends on each family. My family is extremely huge. I have a big family, and I can tell you in all honesty, I've never heard of one member of my family having a problem with me or with him or with us.
Mm.
A matter of fact, they actually will pull a gun out on you. And am I lying? They will pull a gun out on you. If you come near us to talk bad about us, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a big, big, big problem. His side of the family, we have only one person on that side of the family. And I just personally think that, she has a lot of things going on. But his brother adores me. I adore him. His mother, God rest her soul, was one of the sweetest, kindest, accepting persons I'd ever met in my life. Artistic, creative, brilliant. And my mother did the same thing. As soon as she saw him, she was like, "Hi, all right, you know where the refrigerator is? If you're hungry, go in there. You know where the cabinet is?" I mean, it was never any drama or scuffle with the majority of our family. We have one member of the family that is difficult.
And what's difficult about that family member?
She crazy.
Yeah, she's always had issues being able to socialize with individuals for periods of time. Um, I can only think of certain things that happened to her that I have witnessed,
Hmm.
um, that would make me kind of think, okay, maybe this has something to do with, there were a number of things, but um, she was it's kind of hard to describe her without using specific words. Um, but um, she our relationship became very strained, and it got to the point where she disowned me as her brother.
Mm.
But not only him, let's tell the whole story. Not only him, but also his older brother as well. So like I
Okay.
said, every family got one.
Let's talk about the positive. Y'all both speak very highly of the relationships that y'all have overall with family. How important was having supportive family members? How important was that in your self-acceptance journey?
My When I came out, my brother and at that time, I was close with my sister as well. Um, they didn't care. They kind of said, "Oh, I kind of knew." They didn't care. My mother had a little problems with it at first, but eventually, you know, she was totally, she loved me. I was her son, and she would do anything for me. So, other than that, like on my side, I mean, at, at that time, it made me feel good knowing that my family members accepted me and loved me for who I was. Um, so it kind of gave me support. And I was just happy to have them in my life so.
For me, I think I spent a lot of time um, running from, not running from me, because I don't think I ever had a hard time with accepting who I was. But I think because of some of the unfortunate things that happened at a very young age, it was kind of hard for me to place a label. I think I knew that they knew, but unfortunately, at the age of 8, I was raped, and I think that stunted acceptance for me. So I think it was only when I was able to really process and come to terms with the fact that I that this happened to me, and it didn't necessarily happen to me because I was a person of same sex desires, but it happened because someone violated, and that's what it was. It had nothing to do with my identity. It had nothing to do with my sexual orientation. It had to do with someone violating me. Period. So I think that I was running from who I was, even though I think I knew in the back of my mind that my family would not have a problem with it. But I think for a long time I felt like if I accepted that I was who I was, then I also accepted that what happened to me should have happened. So it took a journey, and it took therapy, and it took prayer, and it took friends, um, to help me to be able to look in the mirror and say, I am a Black man of same sex desires, and that is okay.
Hmm.
And when I was able to do that, I was able to look back and realize my family, they didn't care. They absolutely did not care. So I'm thankful that I didn't have to have the trials and tribulations. They always say that God don't give you more than you can handle.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I kind of feel like that journey in itself was a lot. And I don't know if I would have been able to come out successful and in my right mind if I also had to deal with battling family.
If it's not too sensitive of a subject, when you were sexually assaulted, was it because this person recognized that you had gay tendencies, or is that what happened?
Well, the individual that did this to me was a minister. And it was a minister that decided to pick me up after school.
Mm.
And I'm thinking that he's going to give me a ride home. And he took me to a place and, the abuse occurred. And while he was doing it, he was calling me a sissy and a faggot. And so it's interesting because I can tell how good I am because I can actually tell my story and not break down.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, like I said, yeah, I, in his own words, just from his own words, yeah, yeah, it definitely was connected to the fact that he saw something in me that I hadn't even seen yet.
I want to ask one more question because these sorts of things do come up in conversation when we talk about things like sexual assault. A lot of people will say to gay men, "Oh, you're like this because that happened to you," and that sort of thing, and what would you have to say to folks who make that assumption?
Um, well, I think the best way to approach it is I was gay before I was assaulted. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I knew I liked little boys when I went to go see The Last Dragon. And Timac was on the screen. And I didn't want to do Kung Fu. I want to do a lot more. Um, I wasn't trying to be the last dragon. I was trying to be with the last dragon. And I
Right.
knew then that there was something different about me. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't have the title for it. I didn't have the label for it, but I knew that I was different. I knew that, and in all honesty, I'm real clear about it. The reason why I say I'm a man of same-sex desires is because I'm bisexual in nature. So I chose, though, my mate. This is my mate. And so I with this man. But I liked girls and I like boys. But when I would say I like girls, everybody celebrated me. And then when I was like, but I like Timac too. I mean, Vanity is fine and Timac is finer. So I'm not sure what the problem is. They both work for me, but other people were telling me, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be the last dragon, and you're supposed to be, you know what I mean? So, but I always knew that I was different. I always knew. I always knew.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, anybody that walks around and saying, oh, because someone was raped, that's what changes you. That's not how sexual orientation works. If that's the case, then what do you say to all the heterosexual identified men who were also assaulted by a man who are still heterosexual? But the gay didn't take? There's some things that I believe that we in our community need to do a little bit more critical thinking.
Mhm.
I think that if you sit down and you have someone say, well, how do you know that you're gay? You've never been with a woman. And then I ask, well, how do you know you're straight? Because you ain't never been with a man. Your question is absurd in the beginning. It makes no
Right.
sense. And so, I think that for people to assume, I always ask people, where I talked about meeting him, I assumed. We have to stop assuming. We have to start listening. And more importantly, we need to start thinking.
Let's talk about one more thing. Y'all both have mentioned God a lot, in our conversation, which I really appreciate that y'all are two men of faith. Um, how did you reconcile your personal faith with the sexual assault?
I When I think about what I've gone through in my life, and it's been a lot. I think we both have been through a lot. I still find joy. I find joy. And the reason why I find joy is because I made the decision then nothing that has happened to me that was bad would destroy how I walked in my future. Nothing. No rape, no physical abuse, no mental, nothing. I just made that decision. And so I think my faith has, because faith is that, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so I just cling to that. I don't think that everything can be fixed by just faith. There's got to be some work.
Yes.
And I did the work and I continue to do the work. But yeah, and the devilment of man will not separate me from the love of God.
Next question. After 24, 25, we're going to say 25, after 25 years, Marshall, how do you feel about Kevin? What do you have to say to him after 25 years about how you feel about him?
Oh God, I wasn't expecting that question. The day that we took our vows, I told you that you are my sun, my moon, my stars, and I wouldn't be the man that I am today without you. So you know that I love you more today than I did the first time I told you so. Oh God. So yeah.
What do you feel about Marshall after 25 years?
Well, I'll say one thing first. Many years ago, when we were only together for maybe 1 or 2 years, I gave him a promise ring, and I told him that day that I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I would be spending the rest of my life with him. And it's come true. And my love for him, as like I said, has transcended anything and everything that we go through, what we deal with, whether it's financially, health wise, or whatever. Um, I would give my life for him without a second thought, without any thought at all. If I had to give my life to protect him, I would.